You could survive 100 things ancient humans couldn't, but there's one glass of milk sitting on the counter of nature that no human being has ever safely finished, not once in the entire history of our species. Stick with me because in the next few minutes you're going to find out exactly why and exactly what happened to the people who tried. You've drunk milk from a cow, maybe a goat, maybe even a camel if you've traveled far enough. But you have never, not once in your life, had a single drop of milk from a lion or a wolf or a bear, and it's not because it tastes bad. Nobody's ever got close enough to find out, and the ones who tried mostly didn't live to tell anyone what happened next. Here's the question driving this entire investigation. Humans have milked at least half a dozen species on this planet. Every single one of them is a herbivore. Not one, not a single one is a predator. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern so airtight it exposes something about biology, danger, and just how close a human hand has ever got to a predator's body. By the end of this, you'll know exactly where that line sits and what's waiting on the other side of it. For 10,000 years straight, across every continent, every civilization, every attempt at domestication humans have ever run, nobody has built a single dairy industry around a carnivore. Not one. And in a minute, I'm going to show you the exact chemical reason why even a single sip might have been a mistake. Before we even get to the part where the mother finds you, let's start with the milk itself because the chemistry alone should put you on edge. Researchers comparing lactation across species found a brutal rule. The richer the milk, the faster the offspring needs to grow. Cow's milk sits around 3 to 4% fat, built for a calf growing at an easy, manageable pace. Lion milk runs dramatically higher in fat and protein, engineered to turn a blind, helpless cub into a 100-pound hunting machine inside 2 years. Polar bear milk pushes past that, up to 30% fat, some of the richest milk on land, built to pack an Arctic cub with blubber before it's even seen its first winter. And if you think that's extreme, hooded seal milk can exceed 60% fat, the richest milk ever recorded in any mammal on Earth, because a seal pup has to double its entire body weight in 4 days flat before its mother disappears for good. None of that milk was designed with your body in mind. It was built on a predator's timeline, not yours, and that's only the chemistry. The real danger is still coming. Picture it. You're kneeling beside a sleeping lioness. 3 cubs are nursing right beside her. You reach toward her belly, praying she stays asleep long enough for you to finish. That's not a farming scene. That's the opening scene of a story where your name never gets written down by anyone, ever, and in a moment, I'll show you exactly what happens in the seconds after she wakes up. Here's the part almost nobody talks about. Even centuries of human familiarity with predators never solved this. Ancient Rome kept lions for public spectacle. Ottoman and Mughal courts kept collections of big cats as living symbols of power. Modern zoos have bred generations of captive lions and tigers, hand-raised from birth by the same keepers. And even now, with all our tranquilizers, training, and generations of familiarity, wildlife safety records still document keeper injuries and deaths from captive big cats every single year. Familiarity narrows the risk. It has never once eliminated it. So if centuries of controlled breeding couldn't make a lion safe to approach at will, what real chance did an ancient human standing at the edge of a wild den ever actually have? Before we go any further, because what's coming next completely rewires how you think about domestication itself. If you're the kind of person who needs to know the why behind everything, not just the surface-level fact, this is exactly the kind of investigation this channel is built around. Subscribe now because next week we're picking up a thread we only touch on today, the one ancient human group that got closer to a predator than anyone else in history, and what it actually cost them. You don't want to catch that one 3 weeks late in your recommended tab. Now let's talk about why this pattern is so absolute. In 1997, evolutionary biologist Jared Diamond mapped out exactly why. Out of roughly 148 large wild mammal species on Earth, only about 14 have ever been successfully domesticated. His criteria: diet, growth rate, temperament, breeding behavior in captivity, social structure. In nearly every single animal humans ever built a dairy tradition around fits the same profile: herbivore, herd animal, non-aggressive, willing to tolerate a human close enough to touch without a fight to the death. Predators fail nearly every criterion at once. Most large carnivores are solitary or live in small, fiercely bonded groups that treat any outsider, including you, as an immediate threat. Their diet is meat, meaning a captive predator population competes directly with your own food supply instead of sharing pasture like a herd of goats. Their growth rate is explosive, their temperament built entirely around aggression and territory. And their mothers are, without exception, some of the most protective, dangerous animals alive during the exact window when milk would even be available. That protectiveness isn't exaggeration for drama. Researchers studying lion behavior have documented lionesses with cubs under a few months old becoming dramatically more aggressive than at any other point in their lives, willing to charge a full-grown male lion twice their size if it strays too close to a den. A human approaching that same den with a bucket wouldn't register as a farmer. They'd register as a threat to be eliminated in seconds, by claws and teeth built for exactly that job. Wolves tell the same story from another angle. Long-term studies of wild wolf packs show den sites guarded around the clock, often by multiple adults rotating watch. because a den full of blind, defenseless pups is the single most valuable and vulnerable thing the entire pack owns. Getting a hand anywhere near a nursing wolf mother was never a question of patience or skill. It was a question of whether you valued your hand. But one group of humans tried something even riskier than this, and that's coming up. So picture actually attempting this. You've tracked a lion pride or found a wolf den and you know exactly when the cubs were born. You'd need to get within arm's reach of a mother whose entire biology, sharpened over millions of years, is built to kill anything approaching her young. And even if you somehow survived that first encounter, you'd need to do it again tomorrow, and the next day, because milk only keeps flowing with repeated, regular removal. The same reason a dairy farmer milks a cow twice daily without exception. One terrifying, successful encounter doesn't build an industry. It just becomes a story people tell about the one person insane enough to try, assuming they lived long enough to tell it. Now compare that to the animals humans actually did build entire civilizations of milk around. Wild cattle, sheep, and goats are prey animals, not predators, and prey animals that live in herds evolved a completely different survival strategy across millions of years. Tolerance of proximity, safety in numbers, a nervous system tuned to flee rather than charge. That single difference in temperament is exactly why humans could gradually close the distance over generations, breeding the calmest individuals together, until you had animals that would stand still enough to be milked by hand without trying to kill you first. Archaeology proves just how early and how exclusively this pattern locked in. Researchers analyzing Neolithic pottery from Britain, dating back roughly 6,000 years, found milk fat chemically baked directly into the clay, direct proof people were processing dairy from domesticated herd animals almost the moment farming began. Bone evidence backs it further. Age-at-death patterns for cattle, sheep, and goats at early farming sites show animals kept alive for years, specifically for milk, not slaughtered young purely for meat. Every single site on every continent where dairying independently developed involves species that are herbivorous, herd-forming, and fundamentally non-aggressive. Not one carnivore, not once, anywhere. And here's the twist nobody expects, because there is a genuine, documented connection between humans and predator milk. It just runs in the exact opposite direction. Multiple historical and ethnographic accounts, from cultures on entirely different continents, describe orphaned wolf pups being nursed directly by human women when the pup's own mother had died or abandoned it. Human milk sustaining a predator, never the reverse. A strange mirror image of the entire pattern, proof the biological gap between species absolutely can be crossed, just only in one direction, and only when the predator is too young and too small to be dangerous yet. There's a genetic fingerprint of this entire pattern living inside your own body right now. Most adult mammals lose the ability to digest lactose after weaning. But populations with long histories of herding cattle, goats, or sheep evolved a mutation letting lactase production continue into adulthood. Geneticists call it lactase persistence, and it arose independently in multiple herding cultures across Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Africa within the last several thousand years. That mutation only spread because those populations had sustained, generation after generation, access worth adapting to. No human population on Earth ever developed a parallel adaptation for predator milk, because no population ever had consistent enough access for evolution to bother building anything around it at all. And it isn't only the biggest predators proving this rule. Even the one carnivore humans did eventually welcome into their homes makes the exact same point from a smaller angle. Domestic cats likely began living alongside humans through mutual benefit, cats controlling rodents drawn to stored grain, humans tolerating the arrangement, and over thousands of years that drifted into full domestication. But nobody anywhere built a dairy tradition around cats. A nursing mother cat produces barely a few tablespoons of milk a day, every drop already claimed by her litter, and she's just as quick to hiss, swat, and bite at anything unfamiliar near her kittens as any wilder larger cousin. Scale a predator down to lap size and the same two problems show up. Not enough milk to matter, and a mother who still won't let you take it. Even the boldest dairy traditions humans ever attempted prove the same rule instead of breaking it. Around 5,500 years ago, on the steppes of what's now Kazakhstan, a group called the Batai began milking mares, evidence preserved directly in pottery residue as horse fat. A horse isn't small or easy. Full grown, it can weigh over half a ton and deliver a kick strong enough to kill a person outright. But a horse is still a herd-forming herbivore, still wired to flee rather than charge, still capable of being bred toward calmer temperaments over generations until a human could stand beside it without becoming a target. Same pattern, scaled up. Raw danger was never the disqualifying factor. Predatory, defensive danger was. You drink a glass of milk without a second thought, poured from a carton tracing back, through an unbroken chain of domestication and careful breeding, roughly 10,000 years to the first goats, and cattle calm enough to stand beside a human hand. Nobody in that chain ever needed to test whether lion milk or wolf milk worked just as well, because the real experiment already ran itself, silently every single time someone got close enough to a predator's den to find out the hard way. The ones who survived that lesson never went back for a second attempt. The ones who didn't never got the chance to warn anyone else. Think about how strange that actually is. You've stood in a grocery aisle comparing whole milk to 2% oat milk to almond milk, worrying about calories on a label while an entire category of milk, richer and stranger than anything on that shelf, has simply never been on the table. Not because it was banned, not because some ancient rule forbids it. Because getting a single cup of it would have required surviving an encounter almost nothing on Earth survives. The barrier was never chemistry, it was never taste. It was a mother teeth bared standing exactly where you'd need to kneel. And that's the real thread running through everything we investigate here, the invisible lines nature drew that decided which species could ever get close to us, and which ones never could. If that idea just rewired something in how you see the world, you're exactly who this channel is built for. Subscribe now, because next episode we're going back to that one wild card, the group that got closer to predator than any humans in history ever did, and what actually happened when they crossed that line. Miss it, and you're missing the one story this entire episode was building toward. Every dairy product in your refrigerator right now exists because 10,000 years ago, someone chose the one category of animal on Earth that wouldn't kill them for trying. And every predator on the planet is still out there today, milk and all, exactly as untouchable as it's always been.